Hey, baseball fans, I'm Buster Olney, and on the latest Baseball Tonight podcast, we put a ribbon on the Chicago Cubs championship, and Jason Stark and Jerry Krasnick look ahead to what's going to be a very active offseason.
Cavs will visit the White House today, and coincidentally, so will President-elect Donald Trump. Now, J.R. Smith and LeBron both campaigned for Hillary Clinton and both expressed profound disappointment in Trump being elected. But their reaction to Trump's election was tame compared to Stan Van Gundy's and Steve Kerr's.
People are getting paid millions of dollars to go on TV and scream at each other, whether it's in sports or politics or entertainment, and I guess it was only a matter of time before it spilled into politics. But then all of a sudden you're faced with the reality that the man who's going to lead you has routinely used racist and misogynist, insulting words. That's a tough one. You walk into a room with your daughter and your wife who've basically been insulted by his comments, and they're distraught. And then you walk in and you see the faces of your players, most of them who have been insulted directly as minorities. It's sort of shocking. It really is.
I don't think anybody can deny this guy is openly and brazenly racist and misogynist and ethnocentric, and say that's okay with us, we're going to vote for him anyway. We have just thrown a good part of our population under the bus, and I have problems with thinking that this is where we are as a country, and it's tough on this group right here. We noticed it coming in. Everybody was a little quiet. I thought, well, maybe the game the other night, and so we talked about that, and Aaron Baines said, I don't think that's why everybody's quiet. I think it's last night.
Okay, Amin El-Hassan, Taylor Twellman, thank you for joining me. I'm really happy that Stan Van Gundy and Steve Kerr opened this conversation to this place. I mean, it's one that we've all been having in our homes, with our friends, and certainly on social media. I'll be 100% honest. Not that I'm not. Yesterday was a struggle for me. It was a struggle coming into work with all the thoughts that were going through my head. Because what people have to understand, and what those two, what they pointed out, is that this toothpaste is not going back in the tube. So the next leader of our country, and as I mentioned, who's in D.C. today to talk to our current president, Obama, he's denigrated women. He said insulting things about African Americans, Mexicans, Muslims. He's essentially, in his mentality and in his speech, made people that look like me and you feel like second-class citizens. And that is the mentality that is about to govern us for the next 4 years. And so that impending sense of doom, that is what Steve Kerr and Stan Van Gundy were talking about. And I mean, you know this, the NBA is one of the most progressive professional leagues that we have. And so I'm not surprised that they had these thoughts and that, they were so eloquent when they spoke. But I am, I guess, a little surprised, to some degree, pleasantly so, that they decided to share them, because in a league that's largely African American, I'm sure that they felt like that conversation in their locker room needed to be had.
But don't they have to, Jemele? Because even Stan Van Gundy prefaced this whole rant that he went on, saying the players got onto the bus, no one was talking about it, that he thought they were thinking about the 20-point loss the night before. When your locker room is made up primarily of minorities and they are not showing no emotion, it helps that Stan Van Gundy believes in what he's saying, but he also needs to do that because that's what his players are thinking. Steve Kerr the same way. Two things stand out for this for me, and that's one. The other one is they're not talking about policies. They're not talking about political differences. Stan Van Gundy brought up that he disagreed with George W. Bush, but George W. Bush carried himself in the right way. They're talking about the means in the process of how we got here. I have absolutely no problem whatsoever. Steve Kerr, Stan Van Gundy, and any coach of that matter in the sports world, where it's predominantly run by minorities as the players, I have zero issue with what they said.
And by the way, Steve Kerr mentioned, he said, it's not that I disagree with his policies, because I don't know what his policies are. Yes. I never got to that. It was all just kind of this mudslinging. But I think the important thing for them to come out and say this is, when you have the president-elect using racist, xenophobic misogynistic language. I'm not as concerned that he did it. I'm concerned that this part of the country said, and that's the big thing, because I'll be honest, Wednesday for me was walking around. I flew here, so walking around the airport and looking at people and say, are you the one? Are you one of the ones that do you not like me? Because that's what it feels like. It feels like there's a portion of this country that doesn't like people like me or you, and they...
A portion? I mean, a good part of it.
Well, and I know that's probably jumping to a conclusion, but for Stan Van Gundy, for Steve Kerr, it's important to say that, because you got to reassure the people around you that, look, we're not all like that. We don't all condone that kind of behavior.
Well, I looked at what they said and just how direct and blunt that they were, and I couldn't help but compare that to the NFL.
Oh, yeah.
Much different reaction in that league, and I couldn't help but think about when Bill Belichick was asked yesterday about the supportive letter that he wrote to Donald Trump. And I want people to understand is that I'm not trying to police anybody's political opinions or police who they vote for, but this is a very different kind of candidacy that we've seen. Okay, there have been plenty of Republicans whose policies I was able to judge them on that. And not necessarily on who I thought they were as people or what their mentality was, because that was usually the central focus is what are your policies, what are you about to do, and that sort of thing. But when you have someone who has won this race this particular way, and for a lot of people in this country, you look at Donald Trump and you think, is this a reflection of who we are? Because it's not really about him. It's about the part you brought up, is that there are rather large groups of people who feel like that part was okay to ignore. And that's the part that leaves you feeling very unsettled.
That's the scary part, because the most optimistic version is that, yeah, that's awful, but I'll be okay with that. And then the most pessimistic version is, yeah, I agree with what you're saying. And that's the part that scares me.
And we'll get into it later in the show, but Nick Saban was pretty blunt about why I don't want to tell you my political vote, because if you think I voted for Trump, then I've got half of the country and half my fan base that isn't going to vote for me or isn't going to like me for that matter. It's not.
Let's not forget
listen, recruiting is also the biggest part of that. But at 36 years of age, I've never seen an election like this where sports is now dominating the conversation, because now athletes at some point are going to say, you know what? We're not going to respect the president of the United States.
Well, we're going to get to that in just a second, but let me say this quickly, is that it was, you had Carmelo Anthony talking about what he had to tell kids, and J.R. Smith, as you saw the Instagram post earlier in the show, when he talked about what he would say to his daughter. And I want people to understand that when you have athletes who feel like they need to respond this way, because you're always going to have that stick to sports crowd. Well, they're dragging us into this. I mean, we're having conversations about Colin Kaepernick and him telling people why he didn't vote. I mean, they're bringing us into this conversation and into politics in a way that even for sports, we haven't been quite to this place, at least in sort of recent times.
Well, how do you explain to kids anti-bullying when the president of the United States
has used bullying type of methods and language? Okay, you brought up how the players and whether or not they would openly sort of not show respect for the president. Well, Jalen Rose, he brought up some points about when it comes to players and teams visiting the White House, as they often do after winning championships.
Donald Trump, during his candidacy, he became a polarizing candidate, which included, along the way, insulting a lot of people. So those same people today, as American citizens, have to digest that he's going to be the next president of the United States. How it's going to affect sports? Unlike Tom Brady, when his team won the championship and he chose not to go to the White House, saying there was a scheduling conflict when Barack Obama was in office, what we're going to see in professional sports, NBA and or NFL, mark my words, there will be players that decline the opportunity to visit the White House under his presidency.
I don't think it'll be just players. It may be entire teams. Do you expect that to happen to me?
Richard Jefferson, had a post. The Cavs are in Washington, and they're visiting the White House as well today. And he said, I'm proud to be a member of the last team that's going to visit the White House. He basically said it. Again, got to stress, this is not a political conversation when you talk about why people are feeling this way. It's not because, oh, man, I don't like his policies on repealing Obamacare or things like that. It's because of the language this guy used prevalently, repeatedly to get elected, it's hard to be in that person's presence, right? If you know that this person has said these things about you and people you love.
I mean, Jalen brought up a huge point. I live in Boston, and I was shocked that Tom Brady not going to visit the White House wasn't bigger national news. I know some people talked about it, but the reality was he didn't go because he's Republican. That's why he didn't go, because Obama was in there. He's going to say scheduling conflict. It's the president of the United States. Your team is there, and yet no one talks about it. So now the first African-American or the first minority or the first team that doesn't go, is that going to be national news? Because if it is...
Huge.
But if it is, then we're hypocritical.
Right.
Because how's it any different? And that was actually, you could make an argument that Brady's was actually regarding political differences.
Yes.
It had nothing to do with racism and language or whatnot. So for me, if the players, organizations don't want to go, it's their prerogative. It's their right. It's unfortunate because I think Steve Kerr hit the nail on the head when he said it's like the Jerry Springer show, and that dignity surrounding the President of the United States, I'm not sure it exists right now in 2016.
I want to bring up something. J.J. Redick, in a Mark Spears piece for The Undefeated, talking about white players in the NBA. It was a very, very great piece. If you haven't read it, go ahead and read it. He brought up something. He said, white culture sometimes wants to pick and choose the parts of black culture that they're going to accept and tolerate. And so there are going to be people who are upset. How dare Jalen Rose say that? How dare these teams not go? But that's the funny part is we want you to perform and do this, but when you have some strong objections about, again, the language that this man has used, no, you need to keep shut and stick to sports then.
Yeah, and I would expect that it will be a story every time just because of the nature of what this election has been, because of some of the sort of toxic headlines that have surrounded this particular president. And I want to be fair, though, and say, if you don't want to go, then don't go. And I would have said that regardless of even if Hillary Clinton was elected, or even if you chose, like Brady choosing not to visit President Obama because of political difference, I don't care. I'm fine with that. But on the other side of it, let's say you are a team that does go and you are a player that has supported Donald Trump. That's your right as well. And even though it's been hard for a lot of people to separate what Donald Trump's message has been from what your own beliefs may be, I'm going to try not to make the mistake of saying, oh, just because you support this and you went, that means you stand for this, right?
One last thing I want to say is, if that's your prerogative, come out and say it. So Richard Jefferson said, we're going to be the last ones to go. Jalen Rose says, we're going to go. What I don't like is when people hide behind fake excuses. Scheduling conflict. Or Nick Saban saying, oh, was it election day? I hadn't noticed.
Seattle.
I was wondering all those stickers.
Seattle.
You know?
Seattle. Doing what Belichick did in the press conference.
Yeah, I mean, just say, hey, guys, I'm not going to comment on that. And I think I'll respect you if you say that. But don't play games.
Well, I think it says something in itself that people... Why don't you feel comfortable saying it if it's okay? Like who you're voting for, or even...
Because it was the Jerry Springer show.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah. It's like that in itself is an indictment about what this time is like right now, that if you feel too embarrassed to say not just maybe who you voted for or why, that should say something.
The polls told us that, Jemele, because the polls were completely wrong at every level, and that's because people were scared to say, when push comes to shove, who I'm voting for, they were scared to say it publicly.
Well, and finally, I'll say this before we move on to actual sports, is that, look, I just hope that some of the things that, Donald Trump has said that have been offensive, insulting, racist, misogynistic, I hope to never hear those things from him again over the next 4 years. And I think now we're all in a place where we, as a nation, we have to be able to somehow move on. Yep. And I accept the result. He will be the leader of our country in a few months, and that's kind of where it is. So I'm choosing to be very hopeful about this situation and hoping that the office and the responsibility does something to change some of just the tone in the nation. And I hope he understands that that's a big responsibility, is you have to set the tone. But
that's why I'm more worried about the people who voted for him than him himself. I can accept that he maybe used that stuff just to get elected.
Yeah, and look, I hope that was true.
But the people who voted for him, what excuse do they have?
Yeah, that's true. Okay, moving on to some more NBA, but on the court, James Harden messed around and got a triple-double and a win over the Spurs, 24 points, 15 assists, 12 rebounds. First 15 assists, triple-double game in franchise history. Now, Harden recently told my man Michael Lee at The Vertical that he's the best player in the NBA. See, y'all laughed already. But here are the facts, though.
Okay.
Before the San Antonio game, Harden had gone 4 straight games with 30-plus points, 10-plus assists, longest streak since MJ did it in 88-89. I mean, since you were the first to chuckle, does he have a case that right now, he can be the best player in the NBA?
Let me start by saying that he's my pick to win MVP this year before the season started, because I think he's going to be the first player since Nate Tiny Archibald to lead the league in scoring and assists in the same year. Having said that, you're not
with
the best.
all due respect,
you're not the best player. You're not the best player because defensively, you're not even a sum zero, right? He's still a negative. He's
okay,
still a
but he did improve. His numbers, his efficiency rating.
We had that talk 2 years ago also. He's improved, but when you're improving from here to here, you're still a negative. and that's still the case. Offensively, he's doing great. And like I said, I think he's going to be the MVP this year. And so far, he's played like it. But best player, calm down.
If you ask the GMs around the league, top 5, is he even mentioned?
Probably not.
Probably not, right?
Yeah.
And I think this is more part. And I agree with you on the MVP, but that's Mike D'Antoni.
Right, yes.
I mean, this is a system that fits him.
You think he's
so
a product
offensively, he's going to have a ton of triple-doubles. But remember, Mike D'Antoni, they have 4 straight seasons of 54-plus wins or whatever in Phoenix. How many times were they in the NBA Finals? James Harden, fine.
Taylor?
No, but the reality is this, though. Every athlete in his own right or her own right believes they're the best player.
Yes,
right.
Fine. But until you prove it, you're not even mentioned in the top 5. And listen, Chauncey Billups is on Scott Van Pelt last night, and he's talking about, he's a 5-tool player. He's got everything offensively. Not once mentioned he's a winner, and 2, defensively he's cleaned it up. So I'm going to talk to the NBA people. They're telling me he's not in the top 5. Come on, man.
Man, just hardcore, right? Hit you right now. Hit you right all in your chest.
That Suns one was like, I thought that personal. I was like, well, now, wait a second now.
Look, I think it's okay to commend James Harden for the season that he's already having, whether it be system or not. Mm-hmm. And,
8 games in.
I know, we're 8 games in. And, look, to be fair, the vines were really funny of him not playing defense, right? And they were funny, but I think because that got so blown up, it's people haven't appreciated him for the player that he is. Why are you laughing?
Did y'all see the mannequin challenge where they had the one where James Harden just standing still as everything goes by him?
Yes.
See, that's what I'm saying.
Wrong,
it's like
man.
because he's become a running joke with that it's been hard for people to look through even through these 8-9 games.
He may be the best fantasy player in the NBA.
Oh, I mean, he's putting in work.
Great.
So
fantasy.
He might not be in my top 5, but we'll see at the end of the season because I agree he's got Russell Westbrook was my pick. I think James Harden has got just a good of a chance as he does to win MVP. I mean, thank you for joining us.
Thanks
we
for having
appreciate
me.
it.
Hey, it's Matthew Barrett from the Fantasy Focus Football Podcast. Today on the show, Stephania Bell, Field Yates, and I celebrate the return of Doug Martin. Lots of other injury updates. Of course, Love-Hate is out, and we preview the Thursday night game.
So how crucial is it to win on Sunday? Is it a must-win game, guys?
I've never liked that term. World War II was a must-win. Football is football. It's an important one, but it's just the next one.
World War II was a must-win. Jerome Bettis, thanks for joining us. Aaron Rodgers, me and Aaron Rodgers.
That was a little much. He hit us with relax.
Right.
So he's given us a different.
Always got a line.
I think he may have ran out of phrases. He went to the World War II analogy. I think that was a little bit overboard.
Right, exactly.
The must win in terms of football, and so he understands what they're saying in terms of a must win.
Yeah, I was say real quick.
Exactly.
Like, keeping it real, is it a must win for them?
It is a must win.
Okay, yeah, definitely a must win.
I will say this. The division that they're in, not necessarily a must-win. You know, like if you don't win this game, you don't go to the playoffs.
Right.
It's not that significant, but it's pretty close because
they're teetering right now.
Because they haven't been playing well, and so they need some confidence going into the second half of the season. Because if they don't have that, then I think they can start a downward spiral, and it won't get
timing is everything in life and in sports. And they're under 500.
Right.
He's coming off last year. You know your role a little bit.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Know your role.
Well, with that, we move on to the Cowboys.
Speaking of knowing your role, by the way.
You ain't lying. This is your daily Dak Prescott, Tony Romo update. Romo was a full participant in practice yesterday for the first time since breaking a bone in his back during the preseason. Now, cornerback Brandon Kerr said Romo looked like he had, quote, some juice in him. Sean Lee told ESPN.com that Romo looks fantastic and like he hasn't missed a beat. Now, according to Ed Warder, Romo is medically cleared to play, and the coaches haven't decided yet if he will dress or play or what the situation is this weekend with the Steelers. So, Jerome, I'll start with you. Are these fantastic practices? Are they about to tempt the Cowboys into maybe putting him out there and starting him?
No, not a chance, because you can't upset the apple cart right now. What they have going is real. So they need to ride that wave. You got to remember last year, the same time, they were 1-7, right? Now they're 7-1. You can't, change that.
So why are they publicly just pumping
his teammates
up Tony Romo?
Well, what they're doing is, you got to bring confidence to Tony Romo. He hasn't played in, almost 2 years. So now you get Tony Romo confident. He understands that he's not going to be the guy. But if everybody's saying, oh, yeah, that's just Tony, you want him to feel good about himself and about him being on his football team.
So they worried about his feelings.
Well, it's not about his feelings as so much as they're just acknowledging, hey, he's looking good. It's a good sign. Tony Romo, you got to remember, he's been the leader of this football team for a lot of years. It's not like he's just a guy. He was the guy. So now you're paying deference to him and acknowledging him that, hey, he's looking good. Man, these practices are looking really good. But we all know he's not going in the game. But if they ever need him, he will. As a player, you don't have to say, Tony, you look good, but why
don't you sit
we riding behind Dak right now. But he understands that. It's not even a question mark. He knows the scenario. So he's getting himself prepared to play if that opportunity presents itself.
Well, look, if this were any other team, any other organization, we would be here.
Right.
I'm with you. I think they need to just ride the hot hand, keep playing Dak. And I think a lot of people have turned this conversation into, is Dak Prescott a better player than Tony Romo? That's not what this is about.
Right.
This is about 7-1. Okay. Right. This is about a rookie having won,
who's going to be up for the NFL MVP, by the way. He's in the running for MVP.
All but one of his starts,
I should say. Discussion.
Yeah.
I just find it, listen, if it's Jerry Jones, fine. That's what he does. He builds controversy. But I don't understand why Sean Lee and the players in the locker room are coming out of their way. And listen, they're probably being asked by the media, how's Tony Romo look? But we're talking about fantastic practice.
But they seem really
I had a pretty
excited.
good. By the way, I had a really good rehearsal.
So let me ask you this.
Let
me ask you this: if they put the mic in your face and Tony looked good in practice, what do you say? He looked okay.
No, Tony looks good, but Dak's our man. He's 7-1.
But that's not the question. But that's not the question that they ask you. How does Tony look in practice? By you saying fantastic, this shouldn't mean, oh, man, he's fantastic. We want Romo in the game.
Why are we talking
about
it?
That's not what we're saying. Well, because that's what we need to do. Okay, we got to fill up. We got to fill up time.
We'll go into discussion.
Why are we talking
about this? Because we got to make.
We're talking about the backup quarterback.
That's what we do.
The backup quarterback. We're talking about.
Yeah, absolutely.
They're 7-1, and we're talking about the backup quarterback,
who's been the franchise quarterback. So it is.
And how many playoff games have they won?
Oh, here we go.
No, that's not the point.
Why are you bringing up old stuff?
How many playoff games has Dak Prescott won?
Yeah, none.
None. Both of them.
It's all about
as
the
I
present.
Said, if it were anybody else, I would say
understand.
any other team, they would have shut this down and said, hey, we're riding with Dak. But you have to realize Jerry Jones is emotionally attached to Tony Romo. Like, that's his boy.
That's his guy.
That's his guy.
So is Sean Lee saying it because he knows
Well, this is what I do wonder. This is what I do wonder, honestly, is that because I think what you're talking about, Taylor, the difference between saying somebody's doing good in practice and selling it. You feel like they're selling it.
They're selling this.
So are you wondering? There's a part of me that's wondering, well, are they selling it because they're trying to build confidence, like you said, or are they selling it because maybe there's a part of them that said, man, he looks good. We know what Tony can do. We're already 7-1. We're not likely to take a step back because we think he's a better player. So maybe we can go from here to here if we put this guy in.
Well, what happens is there's going to come a point in the season where Dak Prescott hits a little bit of a wall, as all rookies will do. Now, that's the time when you will consider, making a change at that point. But I don't think, it's them overselling Tony Romo right now. I think it was just a question that was asked. And guess what? In practice, a starting quarterback, you should look really good. Right?
So, hold on. It wasn't really good. It was fantastic.
You should look fantastic. You're not getting hit.
I'll say you're not getting hit.
You're in total command of the routes. You understand where the ball should go. You're throwing the ball. You should look fantastic. Every starting quarterback should look fantastic. So I don't think that should be any surprise when Sean Lee says that. He's saying that. Some of it is as a friend.
Yeah.
If I saw you have been down for 2 years, right? And you're back in the chair. I'm like, man, you look marvelous.
Would see, marvelous is selling it.
Oh, goodness.
Good. We'll talk about this next segment tomorrow, too. It's good.
I know this, Buzz. Every time you're on the show, you're always fantastic and marvelous.
Thank you.
Scott Burnside, ESPN.com here on the latest edition of Hockey Today, the podcast. We hear from Henrik Lundqvist of the New York Rangers. Trevor Daley of the Stanley Cup champion Pittsburgh Penguins stops by. And so does Charlie Coyle of the Minnesota Wild.
You like to go hard in the paint, so that's what we're about to do now. With D-Wade making his return to Miami tonight, he says he hasn't spoken with Pat Riley in months. Here's Wade yesterday.
I know who Pat is. It's no secret to me. I was there 13 years. I've seen a lot of players come and go. I know how he is. So if you're not with him, you're against him. That's just the way he is. So, you got to understand that, man. And I'm cool with it. I'm fine, 100%.
I, for one, am not surprised at all that they haven't talked.
Big two of us.
All right. Well, that's it. Let's move on. No, I'm just kidding.
Because think about it, right? That's part of the reason why they're as successful as they've been, both as a player, general manager, coach, or whatever Pat Riley was with Miami. Here's the interesting part of this discussion for me is that of the big three, all of them have been on point about their complaints regarding Pat Riley or not talking to him. So whether or not this is trying to win the public a court opinion, right? So what I don't understand is court of public opinion, whether or not there actually is something with Pat Riley and how he handled D-Wade and what he did in Miami.
Tell you what, the Clippers, they've been handling a lot of people this season. They're 7-1. They continue to blow teams out. Beat Portland 111-80 last night. Look, I know this whole narrative of the NBA season was written when Kevin Durant when he went to Golden State. I'm
talking about the Clippers 8 games in who have not made a conference final since
with that 8 games. This 8 games, this is all.
There's 82 games.
I get it, but they look good, and I don't mind saying that. And
Clippers are going to win the NBA championship.
I didn't say that either.
Jemele Hill said
it. You're just trolling me. It appears the young Lakers, another good-looking team so far, are much looser without Kobe Bryant around. Jordan Clarkson told for the win. We've kind of moved on. It's almost like breaking up with your girlfriend. We're creating something new. I bet you told a few ladies that in your day, Taylor.
It's not a girlfriend, really. Kobe Bryant wasn't an ex-girlfriend. He was more of like an older brother or a dad. It wasn't. Listen, this is the bigger discussion.
Yes, Luke Walton out there giving it to him.
You're playing with fire, though, as a coach. If you're getting showing an example, and let's say one of your players is unhappy and you want to body him up, box him out, don't be shocked if there's an elbow thrown Luke Walton's way. Coaches, I understand leading by example, but that's a profession for the reserve.
But I think this is part of this shows why the Lakers have played so well early in the season. He's a coach they can relate to. All right, maybe
NFL ratings are down. I'm stealing this last one.
What?
This is what you do.
Go ahead.
Part of the paint. The NFL is considering fewer commercials in an attempt to boost ratings. Currently, games feature up to 70 ads.
They're going to lower. They're thinking about.
Is that the problem?
Well, I don't think commercials are the problem. They're also, by the way, considering adding an 8th official to games.
I care less about the officials.
As well,
is the game going to take a shorter amount of time than 3.5 hours?
No, I don't think it's the time, though, Taylor. I don't think that's why fewer people are watching the NFL. I think it has to do with the pace of game. And honestly, I think it's because they have a bad perception of the NFL.
It's the Red Zone channel. I don't care how
I love the Red Zone channel.
Right, which means the ratings are down on every other channel.
Whatever. All right. All right, joining me now, the man, rapper Gucci Mane, here to promote his next album, The Return of East Atlanta Santa, available everywhere on December 16th, right in time for my birthday, which is 5 days later. This will be Gucci's third project, released in 2016. This man stays busy. Gucci, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Well, we're going to kick it off right away with something near and dear to your heart besides your music, and that would be your Alabama Crimson Tide. They just recently worked over LSU. What do you think about their shutout win?
Well, it was, I watched the first half, and it was 0-0, so I was kind of nervous, but I'm glad we pulled it out. We needed that.
Yeah, I imagine you probably haven't experienced a whole lot of disappointment with this Crimson Tide team. But I'm sure your other team that you're feeling, the Atlanta Falcons, man, they're surprising a lot of people this season. What do you think about how they've played?
They're doing good, but, I think, they adopted a strategy that I used to always tell them, when I play the video game, just keep throwing the Julio over and over, and then we'll win every game.
It seems like a pretty easy strategy, and Matt Ryan, MVP candidate for a lot of people, seems to have employed that quite well. Look, you've had such a interesting and compelling life, some bumps and bruises, but certainly come out on the other side. Obviously, we just recently had this election, but I saw that you were speaking to some young students in particular about how you lost your right to vote due to criminal convictions. What made you talk to them about the voting process?
I just feel like it's extremely important, and you know what I'm saying? I feel like, I served my time, and, I feel like I just didn't want to get punished for the rest of my life. I look forward to getting my chance to vote. So I felt like, for all the people that can't vote right now, we need to let them know that they're our future. You know what I'm saying? They got to think about their future. So I want to let them know that I wanted them to vote. I couldn't do it, so do it for me.
Yeah, as I mentioned, you spent some time in federal prison, but can you explain to me, how is it that you released nearly 30 mixtapes while in prison?
Well, basically, while I was away, I just came up with a strategy. I was like, I wanted to have a presence even though I wasn't physically there. So I just, instructed my team. I said, every song that I record, everything that's on my computer, that's on my hard drive, we're going to release it. You know what I'm saying? It was just a way to make money and at the same time just keep my name going while I was away.
One of the things you've talked openly about is your sobriety and how going to prison kind of influenced that. How would you say that prison changed you?
It changed me because it just gave me a time to sit back and just evaluate my life and look at all the mistakes and, all the things that I know that I did wrong and what I need to correct. And I was like, to ensure that I don't come back into this prison, you know what I'm saying, I'm just going to be totally sober. I don't have any time to make any more mistakes or any, I want to jump every hurdle that's in front of me, and it takes me to have a clear mind. I know my weaknesses, and being sober is just like a big strength for me.
Now, most of us who are just consumers of music, of course, we see, rappers and entertainers living this partying lifestyle. So how do you manage your sobriety given what your profession is?
It's easy to me, you know what I'm saying? Like you say, it's an extravagant lifestyle I live, and to me it's kind of even being more cocky. I love to be, you know what I'm saying? I love to tell somebody, hey, listen, I don't do drugs, I'm sorry, baby, but I don't want anything to drink. I'll take a water.
Yeah, what's usually the response, though, when you say that? Because that's kind of unexpected from, somebody that's a rapper and entertainer.
I take pride in it. I like the response. It definitely surprises people and kind of throws them off. But, I don't want to be predictable. I don't want to do what everybody else do. I'm doing this for me. And at the same time, like I say it from a confident place. I'm proud of doing it. I like doing it. I hope people follow my example.
Speaking of things to be proud of, as much as you've been out here and as much music as you've released and hot tracks, the Beatles record that you have with Ray Schmerd, it reached the top 10, as you know, on the Billboard 100. What does that accomplishment mean to you?
Well, it's a huge accomplishment. I'm so grateful just to even be on that track, and I thank Ray Schmerd and Mike Will for putting me on it because it went gold last week. So that's the biggest record right now in America, and I'm just proud of it. I'm proud of what we did in such a little time.
Now, when you did the track with them, did you expect that it would have this kind of response? How did you feel about it?
When I got the track, I knew it was a hit, and I felt like it was a banger, but you never know how far things are going to go, and every time I go in the studio, you're kind of like, I guess I'm aiming for the fences. I'm trying, you know what I'm saying, I'm trying to take everyone to number one, but I knew that it was a great song, and I was just happy to be a part of it. And so when I got in the studio, I went in thinking like, it had potential to be big.
Now, not just Ray Smurge, you got a lot of artists that want Gucci Mane to bless a track. So are you surprised by the amount of artists that want to work with you?
I love collaborating, you know what I'm saying? Like, I didn't have my hands on so many different people's careers because that's what I like to do. I like to get in the studio and I like to build, you know what I'm saying? It's just fun, man. It's just always fun, just, two people being creative or two artists being creative and just, you know what I'm saying, just building something from ground up and seeing what come out of it.
Now, I'm just going to assume that, you have ESPN on all the time and that you watch all of our shows whenever you're not performing. So I don't know if you're aware of this, but I'm assuming you might be, given how much you watch. But there's a sports anchor here named John Buccigross who refers to himself as Bucci Mane. Are you aware of that?
Yeah, that's my guy. That's my trap buddy.
That's your what?
That's my little trap buddy.
Okay, what does that mean?
That's my little partner in the trap. Me and him done shot each other out on Twitter, and he been saying Bucci Mane for so long, so I follow him. So, I salute him, man. He funny, man.
Okay, I don't know if anybody in history has ever referred to John Buccigross as their trap buddy, but I'm loving it. So what's a better name, Gucci Mane or Bucci Mane?
I think it's a tie. It's a tie. He Bucci Mane, I'm Gucci Mane. We keeping it going. We might need to have a little joint album come out or something. We might come up with something good.
A joint album? Oh my God, that would be super hot in the streets. Forget about that, man. You need to ask him when can you come in and co-host SportsCenter with him.
I think I'm ready to co-host SportsCenter. I think what I'm saying. I'm waiting on my shot.
All right, man. Well, given everything else you've done and your work so far, I'm sure that when you get that shot, you'll make the most of it, much as you have your whole career. But thank you, Gucci, for joining us. And again, the return to East Atlanta Santa, it is available everywhere December 16th, so make sure you check it out. All right, time for the DTM Countdown, a special one today. No, not because of you, Taylor, because we got Will Reeve in the house. And with that in mind, Will, we decided to, make sure you felt at home. So you're the number 5 DTM, Will, because you ran the New York Marathon for the Reeve Foundation last week. Dude, I saw that photo.
Did you sweat?
Right?
Yes.
Did you actually run the marathon?
I ran it.
How
many people run like a male model?
Okay, look. I ran the marathon in a time that I actually wasn't even really that pleased with. It was hard. My legs.
Wait. What was that time?
It was 4:36, if you must know.
I wouldn't be pleased with that either.
Yeah.
Your headphones broke, didn't they?
They did. My headphones died at mile 11, but the crowd sustained me. And that photo, I'll be honest, I knew it would show up somewhere. I didn't know it would be here. So I fluffed the hair a little bit. If this is the trust tree, this isn't being broadcast.
This is not the trust tree at all.
I'm in the wrong place.
If you put a little gel in your hair before that, I'm not joking.
No, it was all sweat and salt.
Sure it was.
Nick Saban, he's been to the White House more than a few times after winning titles, but he wants us to actually believe he didn't know it was an election going on.
Well, to be honest with you, I didn't even know yesterday was election day. So it was so important to me that I didn't even know it was happening. We're focused on other things here. I don't really make political comments. So if I say I like one person, that means that everybody that voted for the other person doesn't like me. So why would I do that?
Because your job is so important that you don't know it's election day. When anyone says, I'll be honest with you, or honestly, it probably means they're not telling the truth.
First of all, Nick Saban has won 11 titles. He can say he's voting for Bozo the Clown. Nobody's turning their back on Nick Saban, regardless of who he said he voted for.
Right, and they say that football is religion down there, and clearly religion is bigger than politics, meaning football is bigger than politics to Nick Saban, which is irresponsible of him, in my opinion, because he's a leader of young men who should get out the vote.
Yeah, I wonder if he had that conversation with them, given what his comments were. I think he was just trying to avoid the question. Learned a lot from Bill Belichick. John Wall, apparently he's trying to beat traffic nowadays because for the second game in the row, he got ejected. Last night it was for this foul on Marcus Smart. Now, this came right after he was fined $25,000 for bumping an official and getting ejected on Monday. Whose man's is this? That's probably yours, because you seem like you were that type of player, Taylor.
Whoa. I had like one red card in my entire career, maybe two.
Show me the receipt.
And you probably didn't deserve it either, right?
I definitely deserve both of them. I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think he's just tired of playing for the Wizards, to be honest with you.
They have had a
He needs
rough
help.
start. Yeah, well, I mean,
That's not the way to go about asking for help.
It's a cry for help.
So
She does not need help.
I don't know
this is
whose
solo.
mother
When
this
you've
is.
got it, you've got to flaunt it. And that sweater is 100% spot on. I need that sweater now. Look at the moves. Everything's in sync.
Did these people
Go on, girl.
Did she choreograph this like before? Is she in the mirror like, all right, I got good tickets tonight. I'm going to be on the screen. Got to work on
$1,000. Will
who's
does
this
that
guy?
after he gets out of the shower.
He took it to the floor.
Maybe.
This guy
not my dirty laundry here. Come on.
I'm going to vote mom or whoever mother that was better than this guy. He took it to the floor. It kind of looked
This
like...
isn't even dancing.
That's inappropriate.
At least she tried this.
The kids watching.
Ugly sweater.
You feel like her whole ensemble.
I love the whole thing.
Yeah, and then he goes over the rail.
What's he, a Spider-Man?
Oh,
That
and
is
even the
commitment.
facial expression. She was into it.
I want you guys to watch this. Get into this. Break
Watch
roads. Got
This
a
is
million
fake.
views
This is fake.
Haters will say it's fake. You're a hater.
on
Haters.
Instagram. So y'all don't think this is real?
It's not. You remember the water bottle thing?
Yeah.
Yeah, right. So the water's got to be equally in the bottle and whatnot. How do we know two things? One, that bottom marker is not taped or glued to the.
He said it wasn't, and I believe
He said it. He also said.
Well, actually, what he said was
viral. It is.
He said, honestly, to be honest with
Go
you.
ahead.
No, it's right.
Where's my other marker? Did you steal my other marker? Have you sabotaged me?
I did. I did.
Now, gentlemen, don't fight.
No, it's good.
See,
This is a
I
lot
did
of
it before the
Hampson.
show because
You did.
I'm a genius, and these just amateurs. I'm trying to teach
Yeah.
them, trying to bring y'all up.
Run a marathon
Trying to
with a
upgrade both of you.
hairstylist. What's wrong with you?
See,
Hairstylist,
don't
you
fight.
run a marathon.
Both of y'all looking like an Abercrombie.
The North Carolina Tar Heels head to Durham to face their fiercest rivals, the Duke Blue Devils. Touchdown! Coverage begins Thursday at 6:30 Eastern on ESPN Radio. Presented by Dr. Pepper.